I never imagined that peace could be this quiet. The kind of quiet that hums beneath the soft rhythm of a city morning, sunlight spilling through the glass walls of my penthouse, the aroma of Ethiopian coffee swirling through the air, and the faint rustle of silk as I adjust my blouse before another board meeting. People see the calm, the elegance, the success. What they don't see is the scar beneath it, invisible, but still tender when touched by memory. My phone buzzes on the counter, vibrating against marble. I glance down, expecting another calendar reminder, but the sender's name freezes me mid-sip. Emily and Daniel, anniversary party invitation. Emily, my sister. Daniel, the man who was once supposed to be my husband. For a second, the room tilts. My heart doesn't race anymore. It just tightens, like a bruise pressed too hard. I stare at the invitation, fingers tracing the embossed gold letters, and I almost laugh. 10 years later, and she still signs everything with our parents' blessing. Outside, the city looks golden and forgiving, but I know better. The reflection in the glass shows a woman the world believes has it all, and maybe I do. But behind that polished image lives the truth no one dares to ask about. I take a slow breath, set down my coffee, and whisper to my reflection. All right, Emily. Let's see how this story ends. 10 years ago, I wasn't this woman. I was softer, naive, and far too trusting. Back then, love looked like a forever promise. White lace dresses, laughter spilling across a church hall, and a future I thought was mine. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years. He was charming in that small town, boy next door kind of way. Honest eyes, easy smile, and a steadiness that made me believe I was safe. My parents adored him. My sister, Emily, pretended to. We grew up close, or at least I thought we did. Emily was the wild one, the center of attention, the one who never heard the word no. I was the quieter one, the achiever, the planner, the daughter who made things happen. When Daniel proposed, I saw pride in my parents' eyes. But in Emily's, I saw something else, a flicker of envy she tried to hide behind her perfect grin. It started subtly. Little jabs about the dress I chose. Whispers about how Daniel and she had always clicked. I brushed it off, until the week before my wedding, when everything I'd built came crashing down. I still remember the night. Mom called me over, her tone calm, too calm. Sweetheart, she said, Emily and Daniel have developed feelings. It's better this way. You'll understand someday. Understand? I couldn't even breathe. I looked at them, my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, and saw no guilt, only pity. Emily stood there, head lowered, crocodile tears glistening like cheap glass. And Daniel, he couldn't even meet my eyes. My engagement ring hit the marble floor before I realized I'd thrown it. My hands trembled, my chest ached, and for the first time in my life, I felt utterly disposable. I left that night with nothing but my suitcase and my grandmother's locket, the one she'd given me years ago, saying, "When words fail, let silence speak for you." As the door closed behind me, I promised myself something. If silence was my weapon, then one day, it would be my victory. Starting over felt like free-falling. I landed in Chicago with 2 suitcases, a half-paid lease on a tiny apartment, and a resume no one seemed to care about. The city was loud and different, and maybe that's what I needed. No one knew me there. No one pitied me. For the first few weeks, I lived on black coffee and instant noodles. Every night, I'd sit by the window, clutching my grandmother's locket, whispering, "Silence, not surrender." It became my mantra. I found a job as an assistant at a small interior design firm. The pay was barely enough for rent, but the work, the colors, the textures, the transformation of space, it soothed me. My boss, Margaret Cole, was everything I aspired to be. Elegant, sharp-tongued, and completely in control of her life. She saw potential in me before I did. "You've got an eye for this," she told me one evening as I reorganized fabric swatches. "Don't waste it making coffee runs." Under her mentorship, I learned the language of design, how light changes a room, how emotion lives in color. I started taking online courses, staying up until dawn sketching layouts and studying floor plans. It wasn't easy. There were nights when self-doubt crept in like a slow leak, whispering that maybe my family was right, that I wasn't enough. But then I'd remember Emily's smirk, my parents' silence, and I'd push through the exhaustion. My first small victory came 2 years later, a boutique hotel lobby I helped redesign. The owner praised the warmth and balance of the space, calling it a reflection of quiet confidence. I smiled. He didn't know how literal that was. One success led to another. I began freelancing, then consulting, and within 5 years, I launched my own firm, Holloway & Company. Interiors. I kept my name quiet online, using my middle name professionally, staying invisible to the people who had erased me. Clients came from word of mouth, CEOs, politicians' wives, even small families wanting a fresh start. They trusted me to create beauty out of emptiness, and maybe that's why I excelled. I understood what it meant to rebuild from nothing. When magazines started calling, I refused interviews. When awards arrived, I accepted them under pseudonym. My success was mine alone, unseen, unshared, untainted. And yet, every milestone carried a whisper of irony. Emily had stolen my wedding, but I had quietly built an empire. Still, I never reached out. Not a call. Not a text. I kept my silence because silence, I learned, speaks loudest when the time is right. The invitation sat on my desk for 3 days before I finally decided what to do. I wasn't sure why I accepted: curiosity, closure, or maybe just the quiet thrill of walking back into the world that once discarded me. Whatever the reason, when I finally stood outside the Lakeshore Grand Hotel that Saturday evening, I felt calm. Not the brittle calm of repression, real calm. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. The lobby glimmered with gold chandeliers and roses. Too much. Too loud. Emily's taste. I checked in under my company's name, Holloway & Company, because technically, my firm had sponsored part of the floral design for the event. The irony almost made me laugh. Inside the ballroom, the air shimmered with perfume and old money. I spotted my parents first, Mom in pale lavender, Dad with that same stiff smile he wore the day he told me my wedding was canceled. And then, there she was, Emily. She looked almost identical to how I remembered her: flawless curls, designer dress, the kind of beauty that photographs well but fades up close. Daniel stood beside her, heavier now, his charm dulled by time. They both froze when they saw me. Isabella? Emily's voice cracked. She wasn't expecting me. I smiled, small, polite, distant. Happy anniversary. Her eyes darted nervously. You came. I did, I said. Actually, I was already here. The event manager requested Holloway & Company to handle the interior layout. I just wanted to make sure everything looked perfect. Recognition dawned slowly in her eyes. Confusion first, then disbelief. You're Holloway & Company. I nodded, savoring the silence that followed. Around us, guests murmured, whispering my name. Someone mentioned a magazine cover, a design award, my firm's name trending online. The noise grew, but I stayed still, centered, composed, unbothered. Daniel approached, his voice unsure. So, you're successful now. I almost laughed. Now? I'd been successful for years. They were just catching up. Yes, I said simply. More than I ever imagined. Mom looked pale. You never told us, she whispered. You never asked, I replied, my tone even. I assumed you were too busy giving your blessings elsewhere. Emily's face tightened. You don't have to be cruel, Izzy. Cruel? I tilted my head. You stole my fiancé. My wedding. My parents' approval. You called it love. I called it betrayal. If this feels cruel, maybe it's just the echo of your own actions. The silence that followed was exquisite, thick, heavy, honest. Then, to everyone's shock, the event manager appeared at my side. Miss Holloway, the press wants a few words about your design concept before dinner. Emily blinked. Press. I turned to her, meeting her eyes squarely. Yes. They're featuring the woman who designed this space. Funny, isn't it? You're celebrating a decade of taking what wasn't yours And I'm standing here surrounded by everything I built myself. The color drained from her face. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. My parents avoided my gaze. I took a slow breath and smiled for the cameras. My sister's expression, a blend of disbelief and regret, burned into memory like a painting I'd waited years to finish. For the first time, I realized I didn't need revenge. I just needed to stand in my truth and let it speak louder than any wedding ever could. After the press left and the crowd thinned, I found myself on the hotel terrace, the city glittering beneath us like a sea of stars. The night air was cool, soft against my skin, a quiet contrast to the tension simmering behind me. Emily approached first. Her heels clicked unevenly against the stone floor, like even they were unsure of the moment. "Izzy," she began, voice trembling, "I didn't know you'd become all this." I turned, meeting her eyes, the same blue as mine, but tired now. "That's because you never cared to look." She winced, then sighed. "I made mistakes. I was young, and I thought. You thought love meant taking whatever you wanted," I finished. "And our parents thought blessing that theft made it right." Right on cue, Mom and Dad stepped out from the ballroom, their faces painted with the guilt of a decade too late. Dad spoke first. "We were wrong, sweetheart. We see that now." I studied them, the people who had once watched me crumble and did nothing. "Do you?" I asked softly. "Because forgiveness doesn't come from words. It comes from change." Mom's eyes shimmered. "Tell us how to fix this." That was the moment I realized I held the power, not the vengeful kind, but the kind that rebuilds, redefines, and reclaims. So I laid down my terms. "To start," I said, "no more lies. Not between you, not with me. If you want a place in my life, it starts with honesty." Emily nodded slowly. "Okay." "Second," I continued, "I want you to pursue something of your own, Emily. Not something borrowed or stolen, something that belongs entirely to you. You spent years defining yourself by what you could take. Try creating instead." Her lips trembled. "I don't even know what that is anymore." "Then find out," I said. "You owe that to yourself." I turned to my parents next. "And you, I don't need apologies. I need boundaries. No more favoritism. No more choosing the louder voice over the right one. If you want me in your lives, treat me as your daughter, not your second choice." Dad's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Mom wiped her tears. The silence that followed wasn't bitter this time. It felt clean, like the air after a storm. "I'm not doing this to punish you," I added, my voice softer now. "I just refuse to repeat the past. You taught me silence, but I learned something stronger, self-respect." Emily looked down, her mascara smudged, her pride cracked open. "You really did win, didn't you?" I smiled faintly. "No, Emily. I didn't win. I just stopped losing." And with that, I turned back toward the city, my city, the lights below shimmering like 1,000 quiet affirmations that I was finally, irrevocably free. Weeks passed after that night, and the silence that followed felt different. No longer the silence of exile, but of peace. For the first time in years, I didn't carry the weight of unspoken pain. I had faced it, named it, and left it where it belonged, in the past. Emily started reaching out occasionally, short texts at first, then calls. She told me she'd enrolled in a graphic design course, something she'd always admired but never pursued. "It feels strange," she said one day, "starting from scratch." I smiled through the phone. "It's not strange. It's brave." As for my parents, they visited me one quiet Sunday afternoon. No grand apologies, no rehearsed speeches, just time spent together, helping my mother arrange flowers in my living room while Dad admired the art on my walls. He paused at one piece, an abstract painting of gold and ash, and said, "It looks like something broken finding its way back to beauty." I didn't tell him that I'd painted it myself on one of those sleepless nights years ago. Some truths don't need to be spoken aloud. Later, when they left, I walked to the large window, overlooking the city. My reflection stared back, not the polished perfection the world saw, but a woman who had fought for her peace inch by inch. I reached for my grandmother's locket, the same one I'd clutched the night I lost everything. It was warm against my skin, almost alive. Her words echoed softly in my mind. When words fail, let silence speak for you. But now I understood something deeper. Silence wasn't just the absence of words, it was the presence of power. The ability to walk away without explaining, to grow without proving, to heal without applause. I smiled at my reflection, older, wiser, softer in all the right ways. My story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, about finding beauty in what was broken, and knowing that sometimes the sweetest justice is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't. As the city lights flickered beneath me, I whispered my final thought, the one line that summed up everything I'd learned. In the end, I didn't need to steal anything back. I built a life no one could ever take from me again. And for the first time in 10 years, the silence felt like home. Bottom of form.